The Citroën FAF is a French vehicle designed for the African and Asian markets. In the early 70s, the company launched an ambitious program to provide developing nations with the simplest and cheapest cars possible. This project had a serious social mission. The plan was to assemble the vehicles in small African factories, using 50% local components. This would create jobs and drive local industrialization. After all, newly independent African countries were struggling with poverty, unemployment, and a lack of infrastructure. The name FAF is an acronym for the slogan Facile à fabriquer, facile à financer. Translated, it means easy to manufacture, easy to finance. And indeed, this boxy vehicle made of flat-pressed steel sheets was the absolute peak of utility. It was incredibly cheap, easy to maintain, and felt right at home on the dirt roads of tropical Africa or Asia. But did you know that the mastermind behind this ultra-budget car wasn't actually Citroën? Why were the French forced to buy a license for their own concept? What was Citroën's true goal with this model? And what ultimately stopped this DIY kit car from conquering the world? Get comfortable, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's go. And no, we aren't heading to France, but to the African continent, where today's story begins. It all started with an eccentric French expat, Maurice Delignon, living in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. In the early 60s, he had the wild idea to turn his modest Citroën AMI6 passenger car into a purely utilitarian mini SUV. Delignon simply chopped off the entire upper body, leaving only the suspension, chassis, engine, and gearbox. He built a new open body from scratch using flat metal panels, zero welding. Every single part was bolted together. Rumors about the eccentric Frenchman and his bizarre machine quickly spread across Abidjan. Soon, two French entrepreneurs, Jean Letequin and Robert Lechanter, took an interest. Realizing this crude, homemade rig was perfect for an African village, they bought the SUV and prepped it for mass production. By 1968, their workshop rolled out the first batch of cars called the Baby Bruce. By the way, the French word Bruce means bush or wilderness. So this rugged machine literally translates to baby of the bush. The AMI6 platform was swapped for the cheaper, legendary Citroën 2 CV. From it, the Baby Bruce inherited an air-cooled 24 horsepower, flat twin engine, its unique suspension, and a 4-speed gearbox. Interestingly, the most bizarre interior element of the 2CV also carried over. The gear shifter that stuck straight out of the dashboard, operating on a push-pull mechanism. People jokingly called it the umbrella handle. As for that unique suspension, it was originally designed with one strict requirement. A French farmer had to be able to drive across a plowed field with a basket of eggs on the back seat without breaking a single one. In Africa, they hauled chickens and bags of coffee instead of eggs. But the suspension swallowed local potholes and craters just as flawlessly. It was the absolute peak of practicality. Inside, just 4 seats and a steering wheel. No roof and no doors meant less weight and easier access. Maintaining this humble machine was a joke. Damaged a body panel? No problem. Tear a metal sheet off an old fence, paint it, bolt it on, and the car is good as new. You didn't even need a welder, and parts for the 2CV engine could be found in literally every corner of Africa. The car could haul up to half a ton of cargo, becoming an absolute lifesaver for farmers. Word of these miracle machines reached France. Citroën took notice of the design and ended up buying the license from the African workshop. In return, the French began shipping ready-to-assemble kits to the Ivory Coast. Production of the Baby Bruce ran until 1977, with over 1,300 units built. But that was just the warm-up. The utilitarian car was about to go on a world tour. In 1970, Citroën's Vietnamese division started producing its own version called La Dalat. These were used as police cars, ambulances, and even stretched taxi buses. Over 5,000 units were built in Saigon. In 1972, Greece took the baton. The company Namco built a factory in Thessaloniki and launched a model called the Pony. This version shattered all records, with about 30,000 cars produced, some even exported to the USA. Just imagine the absurd contrast. In the 70s, while wealthy America was driving giant 6-meter Cadillacs and roaring muscle cars, Americans were eagerly buying tiny, 24-horsepower Greek tin cans to blast across beaches like buggies. Meanwhile, in Iran, they assembled a version called the Gieni, where pickups were occasionally even fitted with air conditioning. And way over in Chile, a small batch was released under the name Yagan. All these cars shared the same base, but featured distinct local flavor, from the shape of the grille to the headlights. It's worth noting that the trend for these simple, utilitarian boxes had taken over the world. The British had their beach-ready Mini Moke. The Germans had the military Volkswagen Type 181 or Safari. But it was the French who tried to turn this concept into a global social mission for the Third World. To standardize this zoo of models, Citroën decided in the mid-70s to launch a global lineup, the FAF. The supply model was simple, 50-50. Citroën provides the engine, chassis, and gearbox, while local factories in Africa bend the metal for the body and make the seats. All it took was a basic press and spot welding. According to calculations, assembling one car took only 136 man-hours. The first FAFs were presented in 1978 in Dakar. The aerodynamics of this car were on par with a brick, but for 60 kilometers per hour somewhere in the African savannah, you didn't really need more. This specific design was offset by a massive choice of bodies, from open convertibles to closed vans, and even a military all-wheel drive version called the Patrol. It seemed like guaranteed success, but no miracle happened. At the European plant in Portugal, they built a mere 810 cars over 4 years. In Africa, the situation was even worse. 300 cars in Guinea-Bissau, 60 in the Central African Republic. And Senegal managed to produce a pathetic 15 vehicles. Indonesia slightly saved the statistics with 600 units. By 1981, the project was completely shut down. So, what went wrong? The local population met Citroën's care with cold indifference, viewing the FAF as far too primitive and second-rate. The harsh reality was that the local elite, who had just started to escape poverty, wanted status, chrome, and clear coat, not a bolted-together tin can. And although French designers tried some tricks, like making the front grille look exactly like a brutal American Jeep, the locals weren't fooled. They saw this cheap DIY kit as an insult from their former colonizers. On top of that, good used European cars were already flooding into Africa, and a much more modern competitor had entered the market, the Renault 4. Against them, the FAF, with its 29 horsepower engine, constantly overheated in the sun, couldn't pull uphill, offered zero comfort, and crumpled like a soda can in a crash. While the French were playing with construction kits, the automotive world had moved far ahead. And although the global project failed, for many enthusiasts, the Baby Bruce and the FAF will forever remain the benchmark of the perfect off-roader, simple, repairable, and relentless. Would you want a utilitarian DIY kit like this for fishing trips or conquering the off-road? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video.